Okay, today I want to look at this. What we have here is the Sony 50mm 1.8 OSS lens, nice little lens. And right here we have the Kenko, let's see what the official name is, Kenko for Sony E mount DG Extension tube. All right. And what extension tubes do is turn your standard lens into a macro lens. So we'll start out with both tubes on. I've got a 16 and a 10 is what it comes with. The neat thing about the Kenko tubes, at least this particular tube, is it allows for autofocus and aperture control to pass through the camera. It translates right through the tubes into the lens. That's very important with these lenses because you'll notice there's no aperture ring, and the focus is a motor-driven style focus. It's not really a direct kind of thing on these lenses. So without this control, you've really got nothing with an extension tube on a Sony lens like this. If it's a full manual lens with an aperture ring and a full focus ring, then you could use the cheap tubes. But if you want to use your Sony lenses that are motor drive focus and with no aperture ring, you're going to need these tubes. So let's get this mounted on the camera. You'll just clip it on right there. In our last video, we looked at the 30mm macro lens for the Sony. And I said to you the downside to me of that system, of that lens, is the focal length. For if you're into insects and so on, you're going to have to be really sneaky, set up in a blind and wait, because they're going to have to pretty much crawl into that lens to get a real good shot of an insect. With the extension tubes, you have a few advantages. The fact that you can use almost any lens. You can pick a focal length that gives you a little more working distance. The downside of extension tubes is you lose a lot of light through the tubes. If you have both of these tubes on there, it's almost 3 stops, thereabouts, that you're going to lose. So where I was shooting at f/22 in the same lighting conditions, I'm going to have to be down to 16, 13, something right in there, or even a little bit lower to get a similar exposure. So let's go ahead and put the same subject we had last time, which is my little fisheye lens. And the camera starts to focus as soon as I put it in. But with this lens, with both these tubes on, I have to back up because the added focal length, this setup, allows me to back up a little bit. Alright, so we're going to find our minimum focusing distance on this and compare. So focusing with the extension tubes, both of them on the 50, is quite a bit more difficult than focusing with the 30. But it does a good job. Let's snap a shot there and see what we get. And we're too dark, as I mentioned before. So let's go down to, say, f13. Take another shot there. Okay, much better. And comparing to our closest we got, it is very similar. We're not quite as tight with both of those on as we were with the 30. Take off the small one. We're just going to shoot with the 16mm tube on there. which will give us a little bit more light, and it should be a little easier to work with here. We're going to have to probably be closer. Your lens with the tube on cannot focus to infinity. So you've got to figure out where the range is. And you'll be doing a lot of manual focusing if you use this system. So what I do to start with is I just crank the focus all the way to the right until I think I've got it all, and then I try to move my camera or my object in and out until I find a space that's in focus. Okay, so with this one on, we can't get quite as big of an image on the screen as we could with the last one. Well, let's go ahead and switch that out again. So with the 10mm tube on there, it's again we're a little bit farther back. So depending on what size of an object you're trying to take a picture of, more or less. So the Kenko extension tubes, very effective, well built. They're not that expensive. I haven't seen a link on Amazon for these. I had to find them on eBay. I found them in Taiwan, ordered them. They came. I was a little worried, but they came. I know what you really want to know though, is how does this work with a bigger lens? Does going with the extension tubes over the fixed macro lens give me some kind of benefit? What if I put on my 55 to 210 or my 18 to 200? Well, let's give that a try. I've got both tubes on here. We're going to click that in. We're going to zoom all the way in, right about there. Okay, so we'll just move our tripod back a little bit. And I'll get a picture of this so you can see how far away it is. So as compared to the 30mm, which we were right on top of the subject. Little shot there of the setup. You should see this on the screen now. And we'll make an image. It looks pretty good. The extension tubes allow you to use whichever lens you've got as a macro lens. Downsides, less light, and even shallower depth of field is what it seems to be like for me than when I'm using a dedicated macro lens. Now, as far as dedicated macro lenses for the Nex, you've only got the 30. No one makes a 105 or so on yet. So that's pretty much your options unless you use an adapter and some other kind of lens. A good way to do it is find a used manual focus macro lens and get the adapter for it. You can get it pretty much any adapter. It doesn't really matter what brand, just find one that's good and sharp. It's got a reputation for being sharp. Click it into an adapter and shoot that way. Most people use manual focus with macro shooting anyways, so it's not a big deal. So there you have it. Interesting possibilities on shooting macro photography with the Nex cameras.